Hello, this is Demon Phoenix with part 5 of my Deathmarch playthrough and walkthrough, and this one is kicking off just with level 17. We picked up from the end of the last video, which was where we took up to level 16. So here I'm using the Untitled armour, but as covered in the last video you can be using the Griffin armour if you didn't want to stump the cash for that. And basically the first thing you can do at level 17, if you are that way inclined, is to do the School of the Cat mission, and you have to fight Cyan, the Spectre here, a Spectre of the Murdered Witcher. It's a very interesting story in the logs that you can read. Now, because it's a one-on-one fight, you actually fight him with the steel sword, so it is the human oil, Hangman's Venom, that you need, and you can afflict him with all normal stuff. If you're quite fortunate, you can use Axie and you can actually get an increased chance for an execution, because as you'll see here, he can be executed like any normal human enemy. So that's where you get the cat gear, and then you can follow the quest to get the swords for the Feline if you want, which have bleeding on, which is good. After you've finished Dandelion's quest line, you finish with Poet Under Pressure and you free Dandelion, and that unlocks Blood and Wine. Now, Blood and Wine is a fantastic expansion and everybody should get it if you like The Witcher 3. And you can see here that that's just been unlocked. Now, if you watch my Going to Toussaint early video, you can actually see that you can get to Toussaint much earlier than you intended to. Now, if you see here, when I look at the quest that's been unlocked, which starts Blood and Wine, Envoys and Wine Boys, is a very high level quest. You're supposed to be level 34 before you fight start Blood and Wine, and everything that you fight there will be that high level as well. But if you watch that video about getting there early, you can actually beat Goliath the Giant, and you can beat him just by shooting him in the face. If you manage to hit him in the visor, it'll kill him in one shot. So even with the normal Griffin gear here, you just keep going up, keep your distance, keep taking pot shots until he dies, and that gives you access to all of Toussaint and also gets you a greater red mutagen. Now, when you're in Toussaint, there's a couple of interesting things you can do, so I would recommend that you go there. The perfumery here is very important if you're wanting to do a few interesting things and get ahead in the game. He will sell all of the potions recipes, so for things like the superior potions. And for the superior potions you need a white gull, for which you have to buy cherry cordial and also mandrake cordial. You have to buy those from the innkeeps. But for each one you also need a rubedo or a rebis or vermilion or any of those. For each one of them you need one of these high level alchemy ingredients. Now, to craft each one of the high level alchemy ingredients you also need a white gull. So essentially, for each potion of the superior potions, and for a lot of the superior oils, which you also need a rubedo or vermilion for, you would have to purchase 2 white gull. You'd have to create 2 white gull, so you'd have to create the white gull twice for each one, and it gets quite expensive to buy all of that stuff. But if you've gone to Toussaint, you can buy any of the alchemy recipes that you're missing, and he sells these superior ones for only 71 crowns. But more importantly, he sells the high level alchemy ingredients, and he just sells them as items. So you can buy the Grado there, or the Vermilion, or the Quebrith, or whichever one it is that you need, and you can craft the superior potions and oils at a much lower cost. Now, I'm not suggesting you go out of your way to buy all of them, because you will find most of the recipes, but each time you want to craft one, you now have access to Toussaint. You can come back here and buy them, and they're really not very expensive. So instead of it being several hundred for the things that you need to buy for the ingredients for the white gull, you only have to make 1 white gull per superior potion, and you can just buy the high level alchemy ingredients for it. Because I use Thunderbolt and Tawny Owl a lot, and also Swallow, I did buy those recipes because they're only 71 crowns each. It's not very much. And you can also make sure that you have the major oils as well, like the ones I use most often, and we'll show which ones I created later. You also have access to the Master Armourer, the Master Blacksmith, and the Grandmaster Armourer. Now, the good thing about them is they are masters, obviously, of the craft. And when you're dismantling things, you can see I only dismantle these swords which give interesting components, or rarer ones that I know I'll need later. So things like a bit of dimeritium, anything that dismantles into that. Now, if you look at the bottom left corner, you can see that when I dismantle those swords, I would get 2 dimeritium ingot instead of 1. Now, the dismantling is quite expensive, so if you don't want to do it right now, you can always put these swords away in the stash and then come back to dismantle them here. You can also craft the enhanced Griffin armor when you get to level 18, which is the first upgrade for the Griffin armor. And the same logic applies when you're dismantling components. So if you're dismantling things like ghoul blood to make monster blood, if you dismantle one with the master armor, it will give you 2 of the monster blood instead, because you get more items when you dismantle with the master armors. So having access to them is very useful. You can also buy the Beauclair saddlebags. If you see the shopkeeper there, he has the saddlebags, so you should buy those because they're not expensive and they give you an extra 10 inventory weight, which is the highest in the game you can get. When you've reached level 18, this is the build that you would have, and level 18 unlocks another slot. Now you can see here that we've got the greater red mutagen that I've got from killing Goliath, and I've been able to make a normal 7% red mutagen myself as well. So last skill we got was precise blows, and because I've got the core alchemy skills, I'm just going to carry on leveling up with crushing blows. So I get crushing blows, and that increases your critical hit damage and your strong for strong attacks, and your strong attack critical hit percentage. So we have pretty decent damage there as well, and we've got the Unvik gear for the really powerful defenses and resistances, which is very useful. I also managed to find later on, you'll see that I managed to find a set of older folk boots. Now the older boots, if you find the relic version, they're extremely good, and I'll cover that a little bit later because it is random. You can get them from one of several pickups, but you have no control over it. So if you get them, that's great. If not, don't worry about it. You can just use the Unvik ones or the enhanced Griffin. So this is the same. We've got the same skills that we've been building up, and this is with the enhanced Griffin. So it has slightly lower damage. The resistances for the Griffin gear are, you know, still pretty decent, especially with the monster and everything. But this is the regular Griffin set, and then you could upgrade it to the enhanced later, which would be even better. And that's at level 18. Here you'll see that I've just picked up the Ursine gear. Now this is my preferred gear. It allows you to start getting the enhanced Ursine at level 25. And it starts off with decent resistances for a set of armor, and it ends up having excellent resistances when it's mastercrafted or grandmaster, and it's the armor that I use the chest piece for my main build, and that's what we'll be building towards in this playthrough. So there you can see the older folk boots. Now what I'm just showing here is also you can create the feline armor and have the feline armor and the Griffin trousers, and they have really good elemental damage resistances compared to the other armors. Now why this is important is you can just carry those armors and not use them normally, but just keep them with you. And you can switch them when you're fighting wraiths. Now you see here that even though the Feline is not a particularly defensive type of armor, when it's paired with the protective coating, Spectre Oil, and the Griffin trousers, I'm taking virtually no damage from wraiths. I've done a separate video on that as well for like a very high level version of it, but it's extremely useful to keep the Feline chest and the Griffin trousers just for fighting wraiths as well. Now this is the Ursine tank version, and this is the main build that I'll be pivoting to now. We're actually going to respec in just a moment, but if you don't want to spend the 1,000 crowns respecing, this is where you would find it. So where you've got the Ingvar Fang here, there is the place of power, and just underneath there, still at the top of the mountain, but in the door underneath there, you'll find that Ursine chest that we just saw, where I took it with the feline gear and beat the wraiths. Now we have the Ursine's swords as well. We've gone and found those after we find the armor. And then we've got the Ursine set. Now, one of the advantages of the having the Ursine set is its resistances when it's just the normal set are comparable to the enhanced Griffin armor, and then it ends up overtaking it and having probably the best resistances in the game. I'm still using the Unvik gauntlets. If you didn't buy the Unvik gauntlets, you could just use the Ursine ones, and I'm using the older folk boots. Now they have some really solid resistances. You can see there they're much better than the Ursine boots, and they're even better than the Unvik boots. But if you haven't found them, you can just use the Ursine boots or the Unvik ones in their place. Because and the same applies for the Unvik trousers and the Ursine trousers. I actually prefer the Ursine trousers because they have better monster resistance. So with the Ursine chest and trousers, you have very solid monster resistance. We've got bear skull technique, so vitality is a little bit higher, and the damage was quite good there. And we've got high toxicity because we've got acquired tolerance, and we found a lot of the alchemy recipes, and I bought a few more in Toussaint. Now the stamina regeneration is lower, and that's part of the reason that I went out of the way to get the superior Tawny Owl potion, which is excellent, and if you apply it at night will actually last all night. So if you apply it after 6 PM it lasts all the way through to 6 AM, even though it's a potion, not a decoction. Now the skill that we picked up at level 18, we got crushing blows, and you can see there I've just taken out poison blades, so we've got a couple of extra skill points. You pick up 3 places of power that are completely unguarded in Toussaint as well. So you can pick those up. That's another advantage of going to Toussaint. And I've finished off crushing blows, and I've put Rend there as well, and Rend's an excellent ability. Now you can see the main things we've got here are Superior Tawny Owl, Superior Thunderbolt and Superior Swallow. If you have the patience or you don't want to spend the crowns, you don't have to buy those recipes in Toussaint. You can just hang on to them and just get the enhanced ones and pick up the superiors naturally. I've also made sure that I get the main oils that I use most often as superiors as well. So I've got the Hangman's Venom, Beast Oil, Insectoid Oil, and particularly the Superior Necrophage Oil. Now most of the time we'll be using the Echidna decoction and the Warthog decoction. The Warthog decoction you don't have to use as often, because with this particular setup that we've been working on through the game, we don't have heightened tolerance. So if your toxicity goes over 70% when you using potions on top of the decoctions, then the damage resistance, the Warthog decoction won't be kicking in because you'll be taking a little bit of damage. So you can just go with the Echidna and then those main potions, Superior Tawny Owl and Superior Thunderbolt. We've got very solid damage, very solid resistances, and it only gets better over time, especially with protective coating. It's a really excellent setup. So this is why I like to pivot to the Ursine build, and this is what I'll be using. If you wanted to buy a potion of clearance, which you can buy from the merchant who sells you RMS sorcerer's relics for the cheese quest, you can also get a potion of clearance from him or from the herbalists in Toussaint or that perfumery merchant for 1,000 crowns. And if you're wanting to go with an all-out attack build, then I would recommend you do that and redistribute the points like this. So we have muscle memory and strength training, we have fleet-footed instead of crushing blows because it's more of a fast attack build, and then we've got razor focus, rend and whirl, and we've put all the points in there instead. The only alchemy we've got here is going to be acquired tolerance, and we've got cat school techniques, so that'll increase your critical hit damage and also your critical hit chance because you're wearing 4 pieces of light gear. And acquired tolerance means you can still use a lot of different skills there, and rage management would be the next skill that you get for level 22. So that's the Feline setup if you want to go all out attack, and with the Echidna decoction you're still getting health back when using signs, and using Thunderbolt or Warthog you'd have very high damage indeed. Now I know I said that we were using that Ursine version of the build and we've changed the armor, but what I am actually going to do, and I recommend that you do if you have the 1,000 crowns spare, is to get the potion of clearance and respec. So here we've got the Ursine swords and the same gear set that we discussed earlier in the Ursine tank part. Now keeping the skills as they were would allow you the versatility to switch back between the Ursine and Griffin gear if you needed, but I'm just going to put all my eggs in the Ursine basket and just use that. So we've respec to have all of these skills down to whirl and all of these skills down to rend for the fast attack and strong attack damage, and we've taken the 5 points that were in poison blades and put them into heightened tolerance. Now heightened tolerance means that with acquired tolerance we can use decoctions but can also use the potions on top of it even if it goes right up to 100%. We've still got protective coating, and this is just a demonstration, but I wouldn't actually have bear skull techniques in this setup, and this is the reason why. You can see we've got very solid damage there. The critical hit silver damage for the strong attacks was 2,300, which is very high at this point in the game. Without bear skull techniques you do lose about 1,000 HP from not having that, but with protective coating and the Ursine gear we really don't take that much damage. So the reason I have heightened tolerance instead is because you can use the Echidna and the Warthog decoction and then use Thunderbolt and Superior Tawny Owl and Swallow if needed, or any of the other potions, right up to 100% toxicity, and Warthog decoction will still be working. So even though you're losing the 20% strong attack damage from not having bear skull techniques and you're losing that 1,000 HP, Warthog decoction will make up for it in the damage, and you really shouldn't miss the HP that much. So we have this set up, we respec it, and I carry the Feline chest and the Griffin trousers so I can switch to those against wraiths. The next skill we'll get will be Razor Focus, and we'll get a slot at level 22. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time for the next part.